Look out. Here come former SportsCenter anchor Bob Stevens, esteemed basketball coach Rich Basirico, and Hall of Fame sports writer Curry Kirkpatrick. And someone's going under the bus.
Welcome into the latest edition of Under the Bus. I'm Bob Stevens, formerly of ESPN, along with Curry Kirkpatrick, formerly of Sports Illustrated, and high school basketball Hall of Famer Rich Basirico. A lot to talk about. We're going to begin real quickly with a quick mention of our presented by, for the first time, Hudson's, a wonderful seafood place here on Hilton Head Island.
Favorite.
Yeah, favorite. That we are
out on the docks. We should be doing it out on the docks.
We should be doing, and I think we will sometime this summer.
They got the best seafood on the island.
They really do. Yeah, and they are a presenting sponsor of Under the Bus. So we will not be throwing them under the bus or anyone else who eats seafood today, I think. We're all good with that. Got a lot to talk about, but I think we have to begin with something that makes this podcast particularly unique, and that is the insights of Curry Kirkpatrick on a basketball legend. People throw that term around loosely, but I think it works in this case. Bill Walton, who passed over the weekend, 71. That's a little too close to us, isn't it? It's a little makes us all go, oh my goodness. You knew Bill Walton probably as well as any writer.
Yeah, I did.
Profiled him on a number of occasions.
Yeah,
let's talk about Bill Walton.
Well, it really struck me hard yesterday because I think, everybody talks about figures, larger than life figures is such a cliche, but this is the guy that was larger than life. Yeah. It wasn't just he was, 6'11" in height, but his spirit and his personality was so huge, and his affinity for people. I think one of the lines somebody used, there were tributes about him from all over, players, coaches, teammates, TV people that he worked with, but somebody said he had a tie-dyed passion for people.
Yeah,
bringing up this, and he was like that. It's strange. I think I was thinking about it yesterday. I think I got closer. I was probably closest to him than any athlete, any subject that I ever covered.
Really?
I mean, well, both while I was writing about him and then since then, because he and I have been talking. I mean, we text. Even in the last year, we've texted. I sent you the text he sent me on Christmas night, which he sends around to a lot of people. And it almost sounded, as I read it again yesterday, it almost sounded like he knew at that point he was very sick. And I think they kept the cancer private. I never knew he had cancer. Every time I'd see him, he had a terrible time walking with his feet and his back illnesses through the years, especially his feet. And he had a hard time walking. He had to sit down, at different times. And even on the set of his basketball games, he couldn't sit down on a table. He had to sit high because of his back. But my relationship started with him. He did not play as a freshman in college.
Right.
He was out of Helix High School in San Diego, a skinny kid.
Yep.
And people were talking about how a legendary player was in high school. Well, it's not true. He was not. Nobody knew who Bill Walton was.
Even though Helix had won 2 straight state championships and 46 in a row or something.
Well, the big high school player that year was Tom McMillan, who went to Maryland.
Right.
And he was an East Coast guy. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school. Nobody knew who Bill Walton was that year until he started, making some inroads. Of course, freshmen couldn't play.
Right.
And his freshman team at UCLA was terrific. They were beating the varsity. But then in his sophomore year, of course, they went on this incredible streak, which ended at 88 games winning streak, which will never be touched, of course. But he didn't really come in the national focus until that sophomore year. And still, college basketball was not an every week TV program in those days. And really not a lot of people had seen him until the Final Four. That's when he got nationals. The national press descended. And he had a press conference after. And it's the first time I really saw him. He had a press conference after his victory press conference after they beat Florida State in the finals, his sophomore year. And he hadn't played well in the final game. And he was such a perfectionist. And I remember he was up there talking, and I looked at this guy, and in his speaking, he was kind of disdainful and sarcastic and defensive. and even churlish. And I wrote stuff about that in the story. And I said it was a kind of a childish show. And, I was really a kind of, negative about him. And so I don't know
Not
how
that
we
you'd
got.
ever do that.
Well, no, but, it was really surprising because he was kind of looking down. It was his first, and I think it was a mistake for John Wooden to not let him talk to the media all that freshman year, because this was his first appearance, and they were peppering him with questions. I remember he left the stage after talking. He said, "I've answered enough questions," and he walked off. And like the national media, we're all looking like, who is this guy? He's looking down on us. Of course but then his junior year, I did a large profile of the whole team because they were just killing everybody. The Walton Gang, we called it, and put them on the cover. And John Wooden did not, he was still very protective, didn't want people talking to his guys. Bill, I had already spoken to him a couple times. And he said, look, meet us. Greg Lee was his best friend, the point guard on the team. And he said, meet us at Hollis Johnson's drugstore. Hollis Johnson's guy, he had a diner behind a drugstore. It was really weird, right in Westwood. Really popular place. Everybody came there. And he said, come around the back. Because there were all these UCLA people hanging out. And they knew that, he didn't want them to see me talking with him because it would get back to Wooden. So he had me come around the back door and come in and talk to Greg Lee and Bill Walton in the back of this diner. And so then he got me to talk to the other players. So we really hit it off from then on, and I covered him for the last 2 years. I wasn't there when they lost at Notre Dame in his senior year. I wasn't there for that game.
Where were you?
So, I was doing some other story.
That was not a huge upset. We knew that was a possibility.
It was a big game.
Because it was a big game. That was not out of nowhere.
There was some other game I was covering. I remember I was really upset I wasn't there. But anyway, they lost that one.
Guess what conference at least it was in? Probably.
Just the ACC.
Okay. Anyway.
Curry, let me ask you a question. Did he, I know he loved his coach, Wooden, but did he not push his buttons all the time?
All the time.
Right?
Yeah.
He aggravated him.
There was, and he always tried to get him, I just read this story, which I didn't know, he always tried to get him to come to a Grateful Dead concert. Because, Bill, this Grateful Dead connection was really there. He'd go all over the world to see him. He'd play on stage with him whenever he'd go to a concert. He was big buddies with Jerry Garcia. He'd always try to get Wooden to come, and Wooden never wanted to come. So one day, this was long after UCLA, long after his pro career, Bill said he was meeting his wife at the LA airport because they were going to go to a concert. They were coming from different places. Right. And his wife showed up in the limousine, Bill got in it, and Wooden was in the back seat.
Wow.
And Bill thought, oh, this is great. My wife, Lori, is finally getting Wooden to come to a Grateful Dead concert. Because that's where they were going in the limousine. But no, Wooden was connecting. He just saw Lori at the airport, and she said, "We'll give you a ride home." So Wooden never went.
Smartest guy you've dealt with, a player that you ever dealt with? Just
on the
smart
court.
About
well, yeah,
stuff?
he was Jokic before Jokic. Everybody talks about how great he is, but Walton. For people who didn't see him play, he was a revelation. He was just an amazing. He played with, all the centers up to then had played with their back to the basket. Right. Kareem, who
that's what I wanted to ask
him.
Coach about is as a player.
And Walton would come down the court and he'd face up and he'd be the great passer. Right. He was like a point guard passer.
Sure.
Like which Jokic has been.
If Walton hurt his back or his feet, especially his back, he might have been considered the greatest center ever.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, but not many people realize that. Yeah.
Against Memphis in the national championship game, he was 22 for 23, right, from the floor?
21, 22, 44 points, missed one shot.
Missed one shot.
And I covered that, but the big thing for me personally in that game was not the game itself. But, he was a junior, and everybody speculated, well, he's going to go to the NBA after this year because he was so head and shoulders above everybody else. And I got an exclusive interview. I went back to the hotel, and Bill said, come back to the hotel, I want to talk to you after the game. And we went back there, and he told me before anybody knew that he was going to come back to school the next year, which was a huge story.
Sure.
So that was as big a story as the 44 points, and I wrote about that. But I just want to tell you my experience with the Grateful Dead with Bill was, and I think I told you guys this story a few weeks ago about my friendship with Bruce Hornsby.
Yeah, sure.
So when the Grateful Dead had their 50th reunion, it was in Soldier Field in Chicago. Outdoors, 3 nights over 4th of July weekend. And Hornsby was doing keyboards for the Dead then. So he got me tickets. So I was really close and got up. And of course, sure enough, who was up there all 3 nights? Bill Walton was up on stage with the Dead with his tambourine, just going crazy like a madman.
All 3 nights, not just once, not just a little, run in, run out.
So this was a real thing. He was so, and it wasn't just the Grateful Dead. He followed all music. He was a big rock and roll guy, and he would ask me about my life. He would ask everybody about. He was such a humanity. He would ask you about your life, and about music, and what that meant in your life, and what TV shows you watched. And
every story that I have read over the past few days, the thing I have gotten out of that is, if you wanted to take Bill's picture, okay, fine, but you got to be in the picture too.
Oh,
I mean, he was that kind of guy. He really was a people person, which you don't get very much at all out of players.
Well, now my favorite story.
Okay.
Now I'm in the NBA covering them. In '77, they had the great team, the Blazers, and they went to, of course, the NBA, playing in the NBA, the great, they beat the Sixers. They came from 2 games back in the finals, beat the Sixers 4 games to 2. But the real matchup in the early rounds, and I can't remember if it was the first round or semifinals, the finals of the Western Conference, they played the Lakers with Kareem. So Kareem and Walton now are dueling together. And Walton, they swept the Lakers that year. The Blazers swept the Lakers, and our headline in the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine said, "Walton outduels Jabbar," with this great photo of the two of them. Well, this inflamed Kareem. I mean, I tell you this story.
Yeah.
I mean, it enraged him, because the next year I went back to do training camp, went in the locker room, tried to talk to Kareem about the coming season, and his back was turned, and I went right up to him. I said, "Kareem, it's Curry I want to talk to you about." He never even said a word. He would not turn around.
He didn't even turn around.
And the players told me, he's still angry about the cover. Walton didn't outdo. Well, Walton did outplay him, and I wrote about that. And then
that ended up playing out in the scene from Airplane, where he goes off on the kids saying, "Hey, you haul Lanier and Russell up and down the floor for 48 minutes and see how you like it." So
so now the
point, he didn't like it.
Now it's the next year, and I kept doing stories on the Blazers, and I was out there in Portland doing a story one time, and it's the pregame TV show. Jack McKinney, remember the guy that coached the Lakers? He, in his post-coaching career, became a radio broadcaster, TV broadcaster for the Portland Trailblazers. So he had a pregame show that was live, and it was televised to the Paramount Theater, where everybody that couldn't get in the game would go to the Paramount Theater and watch this live. They'd watch the game, but pregame, this live TV show. So McKinney's interviewing me on TV, and there was this. It was a curtained-off section down in the bowels of the arena, and we're doing the interview, and McKinney's talking to me with the microphone, and from out behind the curtain comes Maurice Lucas and Bill Walton. Lucas threw a towel around me, pins me from behind, throws a towel on, and Bill Walton shoves a pie right in my face on live TV. Just pied me. And there's a big article that said, "Lucas pies SI writer." It was great. That's the kind of guy he was. And I think that later, then when he went into broadcasting, he became such a character and kind of a clown on the air. And he quoted everybody from Shakespeare to Snoop Dogg, and he became a big buddy of Snoop Dogg. And one time he put a cupcake, lighted candles in his mouth, eat the candle. I mean, he'd do stuff like that, always wearing his tie-dye shirts. He was a spectacular
half the time he wasn't even
being.
Talking basketball.
No.
He'd talk
about the geography and the mountains and the lakes.
When he's talking about all this other stuff.
Yeah.
You're the coach.
Yes, sir.
Is Walton is he the tape you'd play for any big kid you would ever coach? I mean, was he not technically
he was terrific.
About as good as there ever was?
His footwork was amazing. He was nonstop. He was relentless. He was going off offensive rebounds, could play with his back to the basket or facing the basket. And back then, as Curry pointed out, that didn't happen a lot. Usually they put you down on the block with your back to the basket, and you never faced the basket at all, except for running towards the basket.
In Wooden's offense and in Jack Ramsey at Portland, he played like that.
Right.
Great passer, but the great passing
Terrific.
center. I mean, Jokic, they talk about him now. He's the only thing since then.
Probably so. Probably so.
As
But
a passer.
he had it all. He really did. And it's sad because of his back. But the beauty of it when he
And
went to the
his feet.
Celtics and his feet. Red Auerbach called him. This is after he failed. Well, Portland, they let him go. I think it was with the Clippers, and then he was hurt the whole time.
Yep.
And Red Auerbach called him and said, "Would you be willing to come and play for the Celtics, but not as a starter, limited minutes?" And he said, "I would walk to Boston to play with Larry Bird." And then he said, "I don't know if I can walk to my bedroom from here, but I would walk to Boston to play with Larry Bird," which he did. And wasn't he voted the sixth
Man of the year, of course. Yeah. He had a second life in the NBA there. And he always said, playing with Larry Bird is like singing with Jerry Garcia.
Oh.
And which he also did. I mean, I didn't see him much after the Pie incident because I went back to covering college when he was going to the Celtics. But, I knew him in his third life as a basketball announcer. And, we were texting. I would text him. During a game, I would text him something when he said something ridiculous. He would text me right back during the game and saying something about the Conference of Champions, or the Pac-12, because he knew I was a Carolina guy, North Carolina guy, an ACC guy. But, he built up these wonderful relationships. I mean, he and Kareem were vicious rivals when they were playing against each other. I mean, as I said, Kareem was furious that, outduels Walton, outduels Jabbar. But then they later became, in fact, all the praise for him and the comments that came in, my favorite was Kareem's. And he said what a great friend, what a great comrade that Bill had been over the years. And he said, Bill Walton was the best of us.
Wow.
And I mean, that's just, it almost brings tears to your eyes when you think this guy is way too early, 71. And as well as I knew him, and I knew about the ills in the feet, I never knew he had cancer. I don't think most of the public knew he had cancer. I still don't.
As open and public a guy as he seemed
they
to
kept
be,
it very private, obviously, and the family was around him at the end, so they knew that this was coming, obviously, and it's a great loss.
Overshadowing certainly something we would have spent more time on, probably the loss of Grayson Murray, the golfer, who just at the age of 30, who had been battling mental illness and had been battling things for years, but seemed to be ahead of it, and then committed suicide after the third round.
And you think these athletes are stronger than that, and so powerful in what they do, and they're just as susceptible to this kind of thing as the rest of us. And
something we should that's something we should take certainly out of that and out of this entire discussion. We got more of the NBA to talk. Do you have any more Walton stories you want to tell before we go to the break?
Well, I think Kareem said it. Bill was the best of us.
Okay.
That was about it.
It's pretty cool.
Well, we'll talk about the best of the guys who are playing now. When we come back, and we might throw a couple of people under the bus when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Under the Bus, presented by Hudson Seafood on Hilton Head Island, along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. I'm Bob Stevens. Let's continue talking hoops. We were not on last week, but a lot of NBA was, and there's been a lot of NBA this week. And in fact, the NBA is almost down as we tape this to the final two. We'll be down to the final two. It's going to be Dallas and Boston, but let's get to that. Thoughts from
that was our early vacation, right? You say we've been off for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I want to go back to some because we haven't covered it. The Nuggets were about to, the Denver Nuggets, the world champions, were about to win their series, but they did not make it through our vacation.
No.
So after Game 7, here's a guy I want to throw in. Mike Malone, the coach of the world champions.
Yeah.
They've just gone to Game 7. They're up on Minnesota 15 at half. 20 in the second half. They're up by 20, the world champions at home.
In
They
game
lose the game.
Yeah.
They lose the game. I mean, that's just a choke job, right?
That is a choke.
So Mike Malone, coach, comes in after the game, and the first question, the guy, some poor guy, asks a perfectly logical question. Yeah, coach, you blew a 20-point lead. It's got to be hard, right? Can you tell us about the 20-point lead blown? He says, Mike Malone says, next question. And then he mumbles something about, hey, the season's over. That's what's hard. The season's over. He kept saying, the season's over. And then he mumbles on his breath, that was a stupid question. Well, it wasn't a stupid question.
The
Rich,
second
it's the
guy should have
obvious
asked the same question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then
the third guy.
Malone goes into this big narrative about, well, we had to play all 82 games of the season this year. Unlike last year when we cruised to the finish, we had to play hard to 82, get the second seed, and we were tired. And what? Rich, these are the world champions.
Right,
they just lost a 20-point lead in the fourth. He's talking about us being tired.
Yeah. That's a huge excuse.
Under the bus, Mike.
That's definitely under the bus.
Surprise you that Dallas now is in the process of sweeping Minnesota? Minnesota may get a game,
That's
may get
the
two.
team we thought was going to make it to the finals for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of a big team around the table.
Well, think about what they've done. Ant-Man down the stretch has not been Ant-Man at all.
Well, I want to call out Ant-Man because while we were going there, they beat Denver. Ant-Man comes on TV and says, I want Kyrie Irving, right? He says, I want Kyrie Irving.
Well, that's out the window.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. So the first game, and Kyrie always takes his time in these games. First game, he explodes in the fourth quarter. He just eats up. He gets like 15, and Dallas goes out and wins. And now they're on the verge.
Well, Minnesota.
I got to call out the Ant-Man.
Well, I do too. The other night was 104-104.
Yeah.
Right.
And Ant-Man comes down on the defensive side of the ball and signals to his teammate, you take him. So he kind of goes like this.
This is game 2, right?
No, this is the last game.
We're
He
talking
just
about
waves to his teammate to go take whoever the player was, and then he kind of nonchalant walks back. They kick it to the guy in the corner who he supposedly switched with, and the guy buries the three, and they score one more point on a foul shot and a basket at the very end, which was they just let him drive and score. That was the play. The announcers didn't even talk about that. But if people went back and watched some film, he just said, you take him. And he just kind of stands there. They kick it to the corner, buries it, and the game got out of their hands.
Well, I want to go back to game 2, which is the game where Luka hits the shot over Rudy Gobert, way outside.
Gobert.
Okay. The play before that, Rich, this game is going back and forth, back and forth. The play before that now, they're up 2, okay? Minnesota is up 2, 12 seconds. Ant-Man's got the ball. They're up 2 with the lead, up 2. Ant-Man drives in, gets in top of the lane, and he's confronted by Lively, the great rookie 7-footer. He's confronted, rather than to dribble out of trouble or dribble, because it's 12 seconds left, 12 seconds with the lead. Ant-Man turns to the left and throws the ball. Passes to nobody.
Right.
Clear out of bounds. That's right before Luka hits the big shot. Nobody talks about Ant-Man blew the game with the lead, Rich. They had the lead, okay? Because Ant-Man hits the 3 to win by 1. So,
all these teams down the stretch have just Indiana, all the turnovers they had. But I'm going to throw the Minnesota under the bus as an organization. They traded for Rudy Gobert 2 years ago for 9 players. 5 players, 4 number 1 picks. That's 9 players, 4 number 1 picks. And he's Defensive Player of the Year.
4th year in a row.
4th year in a row.
And
the announcer the other night goes, he should be out of the game. He can't defend him.
Yeah.
He's a Defensive Player of the Year. He can't defend him.
Throw the announcer out of the bus.
He should be out of the game, but he couldn't defend
Luka said, I'm slow, but I'm not as slow as him.
Right. He couldn't defend Luka. They kept to say, why they switched on Luka? He's the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
That's all you've been bragging about how good he is, and they pounded him saying he shouldn't even be in the game. So you traded for 9 when you think about it, 5 present players, 4 number 1 picks for this guy.
Well, But they've made it this far. You know, we were all calling them the new champions after they beat Denver.
We did.
And you know, Ant-Man is the new Michael Jordan. I believe a couple of guys at this table might have suggested that as well.
Right.
But I want and me. But I want to go back to Game 3. You know, even after that defensive lapse.
Yeah.
This game had 11. I think it was 11 lead changes in the fourth quarter. So they're going back and forth. Now, Luka makes one of his falling back miracle jump shots. He makes this outrageous shot. They go up by 4. Okay, Minnesota's got the ball. Now they come down again. Ant-Man's got the ball. He drives to the layup. Gets right by the basket, misses the layup. Terrible move. Dreadful move. Okay, somehow there's a scramble for the ball. Ant-Man gets the ball again on the lane. And he kind of pauses, and he's surrounded by guys. Rather than dribbling out, there's again like 12 seconds or something, 15 seconds. Rather than dribbling out, he kind of pauses, and the ball goes out. He goes to the floor, and rather than time out,
they
keep the ball. They're down 4 in this game. It has to have. Rather than Luka jumps on the floor and ties him up. Terrible move, another terrible move. But now the jump ball, Luka can't get off the floor. Ant-Man can jump to the rafters.
Right.
So they set it up, they have the jump, Ant-Man soars so far up. Easy tip, they're going to have possession. He tips it to Dallas.
Right.
He tips it right to Dallas.
He just wanted to show how high he could get up, and he didn't have any purpose of who he was going to tip it to.
He made like 3 bad decisions in 5 seconds.
Big time.
Game over. Dallas got possession. They went down. Kyrie, a couple of possessions. Kyrie hits the corner shot, the dagger. Game over.
All right.
I mean,
well, let's move ahead. Dallas, Boston. Boston's had a pretty easy road. Miami was beat up. Cleveland was beat up. Indiana's been beat up. Is Boston
easiest road of all time?
Okay. Is Boston?
Everybody
is this going to be a great series?
It should be. It definitely should be. But Indiana, let's
Here
go
he
back to
goes.
Indiana
Here he
just
goes.
for a second.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Indiana should be up 3 games to 1.
They should be.
They should be. Even last night, their turnovers, their shot selection down. Talking about guys penetrating, just throwing the ball out of bounds. But think about the game. Was it the second game?
Think about the game 1, because that's still, we've been off. We haven't talked about it. Game 1
had the 3-point lead.
3-point lead.
10 seconds
Again,
ago with the ball. And all these people talking about the game and what choices they should have called the timeout so the ball can be in the front court. They should have fouled in the 3 before he took the 3-point shot. How about can't get the ball in bounds and they throw it back towards their Boston's basket? Why are we throwing it back? You learn that in CYO. If you're in trouble, throw it towards our basket. At worst, they steal it. We could still recover defensively. They throw it back towards Boston's basket. It comes off them, and they get the ball out of bounds. Now they sit there and go, well, they should have fouled. And the coach says, well, they didn't really put the ball on the floor. But you play everybody above the 3-point line because they need a 3. They're not going to drive. They need a 3. And you switch in all screens. They had guys below the free throw line. For what purpose? Who are you defending below the 3-point line?
I was watching that game, and I know you were watching too, and I'm thinking, Rich Basirico is going to go nuts on this guy. And no, it's true, because in the last 12 seconds, I think we counted 4 things that Carlisle did. 4 things in like 12 second mistakes he made. And he, to his credit, Rick Carlisle, by the way, great friend of Bill Walton, played on the '86 Celtics championship team, and a great buddy that Walton had. But Rick, first of all, and he admitted after the game, he should have called timeout. Right. He has the ball with what?
He didn't say next question.
He's got a 3-point lead.
10 seconds.
3-point lead with 10 seconds and the ball. He said he should have didn't call timeout. Then they throw it to the wrong in the wrong area instead of throwing. So now they lose possession.
Correct.
Right? Now Boston's got the ball underneath their basket. Right.
Correct.
The defense. He's got a foul. Right. He's got a foul, and don't let him shoot a 3. And, he said, people were scattering. Rich, don't you grab a guy, or don't you tell in college, you can tell the refs, we're going to foul.
Right.
Can you do that in the NBA? I don't even know.
I'm sure you can. I mean, in high school we do. We tell the official we're going to foul.
Instead, they don't foul. And what's his name? Can't remember his name. Not Tatum, but Brown.
Okay.
Brown goes the right corner. makes this unbelievable, buries a three-point to tie the game. But Indiana's still got the ball with 8 seconds.
No, they have the ball.
5 seconds.
They call a timeout. Now the ball is in the front court with 5.8 seconds.
And Carlisle's got timeout.
Correct.
Don't you have a play,
Yep.
one play? These NBA guys are getting paid $14 trillion a game. Don't you have one play? Instead, they give it to the star Halliburton. He dribbles around like a chicken with his head cut off.
To the sidelines.
He
dribbles to the
sidelines. He has no idea where. That's no play, Rich. That's no play, right?
It was definitely no play. He had guys screening to get a guy open. Once the guy got open, there was nothing for him to do but play one-on-one.
I don't get NBA coaches. They make all this money, and their main play, they give it to their star. You go make a play. You know what I'm saying? Make a play, make a play. Well, you know, if you don't make a play, it's overtime, and they lose the game, and now they lose the series, and they get swept. I mean, that was it, game one.
Of course.
They should have won the game. They should have won the game 3 also.
And they should have won. And they should have won. Was it last
Monday night?
Monday night
in game 4.
Without a doubt. I mean, but
they they kept driving into traffic like they were Indy 500 racers going into the wall. I mean, they kept doing that with 2 minutes left.
Well, they talk about the coaches. They have like 8 assistants. Could somebody tell, like last night?
That's right.
What's Miles Turner was out of the game. Toppin was in. Now the Knicks traded Toppin because he can't play defense. Why is he in the game playing? He's not even a starter. 4 possessions in a row. The guy he was defending scored. Could one of the assistants say, "Hey, coach, get his fanny out"?
And they have
he has no business playing.
They have like an assistant for every
play. Get him out of there. And Miles Turner's not even in the game. He's one of their best players. Toppin, seriously, was traded because he can't play defense. He's down the stretch defending. It was awful. It was absolutely terrible.
Curious that we are talking about on the weekend where we are lamenting the loss of Bill Walton, one of the smartest players that fundamentally that we have now spent the last 15 minutes talking about teams that are fundamentally awful when it mattered most.
And I know Rich knows this probably too, but you're the technical guy. Explain to me these challenges, NBA challenges. Do you get
I don't know anything about challenges. Dude, I don't know anything about
Rich, you get 2 challenges a game, and if you use your challenge and it's not correct, you don't get any more challenges or something like that, right? It's really weird.
You have to use a timeout, even if your challenge is upheld or
costs you a timeout.
It costs you a timeout.
Well, they got too many timeouts anyway.
Well, and it's so funny now. Almost every play, these NBA players, they go in and they get called for foul. They're always going like this, like challenge. They look to the and then TV cameras goes to the bench, and the coach is asking his 8 assistants, 5 of whom are looking at a thing to see replay. Was that a challenge? Do we challenge? And they're all going like this. Tatum the other night, he went in for a shot. He's a great player, right? He made, and he got smashed, whatever. There's no foul called. He comes up before he even finished the play. He's going like this. Challenge.
He's up in the air calling for the challenge.
It's like hysterical. It's all the NBA games.
They're always got their hands thrown up in the air like this, complaining about the officials and the calls and everything else. And obviously they missed some calls, but come on.
Which gets back to one last thing about Bill Walton. I remember they played in one of the tapes that they've played during these great tributes was after Walton would always when he'd go to this offense of Portland, he'd always be going like this, and that meant, do the roundabout thing, we're going to pass it all around the court. He'd go like that on the court. So when they won the championship, Jack Ramsey gave this great speech about Walton was one of the great human beings that he's ever met and all this great, and they gave the mic to Walton, who was standing behind him. Of course, he was still in his stammering days before, he had this great problem with speaking. That's why he was so shy all these years, his stuttering problem, which he then overcame. But so he got up there to speak, and he couldn't say anything because this guy had just called him one of the great. He was so shy, and he was stammering, so he couldn't say anything. So Ramsey said, "Bill, go like that, go like that, go like that, go like that."
And it all made sense. Yeah. That's for sure. We've got some more people to throw under the bus. We're gonna kind of dance around some other sports and do all that when we continue Under the Bus, presented by Hudson's. Welcome back to a very special Under the Bus, brought to you by Hudson Seafood. Hudson's on the docks on Hilton Head Island, along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. I'm Bob Stevens. All right, this is usually when we kind of just catch up on some miscellaneous kind of things, but you guys are still talking hoops. Oh, who do you want to?
I want to throw Towns under the bus. You know, he's
Karl-Anthony Towns.
Karl-Anthony Towns.
The cat
He
man.
is. You know, he's supposed to be their man, scoring and so forth. And down the stretch, you know, the last couple of games, he's 4 for 32 from the three-point line and continues to shoot the three. When you got to recognize the fact,
you know what? I can
we all
probably
could
shoot 4
think
for
better than that.
32.
Absolutely.
Game 3, 0 for 8.
And if, correct.
And he kept throwing.
And he kept on shooting it and crucial times, like not like, okay, in the first quarter, like the game's on the line.
Has he been a good shooter in the
Yes,
past where you let those guys shoot their way out of it?
But when you have to recognize when you don't have the rhythm and it's not working for you, you got to stay away from the shot. And the coaching staff has to say, hey, bud, tonight's not your night.
But they've only got 8 coaches. You got to have 9. You got to allow them an extra coach.
4 for 32, they can't figure that out. All the stat sheets they have. Hey,
The last 5 minutes, coach.
God knows. I can't believe they continue letting them shoot that shot.
Well, if we stay on basketball too, you know, you talked about Dallas is now probably going to sweep. They got one more game to go to get to the Celtics in the finals. But if they get there, this backcourt of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, I've always kind of looked sideways at these guys, both of them, because you know Kyrie Irving has been a flat earther, an anti-vaxxer, anti-Semitic statements. He's been you know
He's a knucklehead.
and he's not
He's a knucklehead.
well, he's not just a coach killer. He's a team killer.
Yeah.
I mean, he killed Boston, killed Brooklyn. He left the carnage in his wake at those 2 places. And now,
But he's got a ring and he might win another
well,
one.
and he made the great shot to give LeBron his championship in Cleveland. And he's a great player, no doubt about it. But his image has kind of got. I mean, he was who's our boy, Justin? We compare him. Kanye West. He's the Kanye West of basketball because now his image has changed so much now that Luka, his backcourt mate, is calling him this. I mean, they couldn't get along last year, and now this year, all of a sudden, he's this great teammate. He's great in the locker room. He's a leader and all this stuff. And
Does Jason Kidd get credit for that? Should he?
You know, I
would think so. Yeah.
I was even down on Luka. I've never really liked Luka until this
Like
year.
complains about the calls
he
all the
whines
time.
every
His
call.
hands
He
are always up,
whines, and
So did Billy Lambier.
he's
that's
a
true,
little
too.
fatty, and he's never in shape. He can't run.
So is
he
Billy
can't-
Lambier.
Well, they're going
Lambeer
back.
played inside. He's playing out front.
That's right. All right.
But Luka and Kyrie have become this incredible backcourt that people are calling one of the
best
greats in
ever.
history. And
The
of course,
best
you go
ever.
back to Fraser and
Monroe. Earl the Pearl.
And, you know, and I go all the way back. I mean, I used to watch Bob Cousy and Sam Jones, and they only won like 12 titles or something like that. But you know, I don't know what to make of Kyrie and Luka. You remember the famous song, Luka Lives on the Second Floor? You remember? It's a great song in the 80s by Suzanne Vega.
Okay.
I know our Justin Jarrett, our producer, knows the lyrics. But it was called I Live on the Second Floor. You remember me, you remember what I look like. And now everybody does. Everybody comes. I mean, he makes the same play every time down, and they can't stop him. He doesn't just live on the second floor. He lives in the basement, the 4th floor. He scores from everywhere. And the song is about child abuse, basically, the song Luka. And Luka goes abusing. I mean, the shot he made on Rudy Gobert, you know, Rudy Gobert's real name is Rudy Gobert Balenciaga or something. He goes by his mother's name. I think he's got to change his name now to his father's name, maybe. Gobert. I mean, he's become so embarrassed in this tournament.
Well, again, for being the best defensive player in the league, and you can't, you know, Luka's terrific. I mean, Luka's terrific.
Right.
And he's a gamer. He's one of those guys, when the game's on the line, he's going to come
So if the
through
best
for you.
offensive player beats the best defensive player, then you live with that.
I guess.
All right, couple other things you want to get into. You want to get into Scottie Scheffler.
I just want to go about Scottie Scheffler because we were off when this thing happened.
Yes.
And it's jumped that weekend. It's jumped this week, and you know Scheffler got arrested driving to the PGA tournament. We all know about that, and he says he's maintained to this day he did nothing wrong. And of course now it turns out the cop that that stopped him might have been kind of a rogue, hothead cop. He got several warnings by his own force. Well, we don't know the whole story of this still, because he didn't have, of course, he didn't have his.
I'm throwing him under
He
the
didn't
bus.
have his body camera on, which is suspicious.
Yeah.
And cameras that showed it from the ground don't really give us any information. Right. But Scottie keeps saying, "Okay, you're going to throw the cop under the bus.
Yes,
go ahead."
No, just you.
Well, go ahead.
You throw the cop under the bus. Unfortunately, you have to throw the whole city of Louisville under the bus with him.
Well, that's why.
The next time they're going to see a PGA championship
is never. Well, of
the
course,
12th of never.
And he's being thrown under the bus now by everybody. He's going to
12th
take
of
the
never.
fall.
Donny Osmond, by the way. So
Very
if you're talking about
nice.
music,
Very nice.
Great.
12th and Never, sung by Johnny Mathis.
I think
Johnny
he did
Mathis.
it first. Yeah,
come on.
He did it first. Yeah.
You're talking to me.
music show.
You're talking to me
That's
about music. You want something. But your view of Scheffler was interesting because we talked on the phone about this. And
Well, I mean, if it was us, we'd still be in jail,
Absolutely.
without a doubt.
well, so what's that all about?
Scheffler
Bob?
didn't even miss his tee time.
I know, how about that?
Defend your big
Well,
time golfer. So he said, wait a minute. He says he did nothing wrong. First of all, he passed the car and went up on the median. That's something wrong. Secondly,
He told him to stop.
if the cop tells him to stop and the cop is holding on to his car, Scheffler
should've stopped.
speeds up and goes ahead and drags the cop. Come on, that's something wrong.
If that happened, yes. And,
Okay, well-
and we'll find out.
Well, as Rich says, he goes to jail. Now, he lawyers up so fast.
Oh, yeah.
Faster than he can hit a 9-iron.
Yeah.
And, the lawyer gets the agent, he calls his agent.
Right.
The agent lawyers up with the prominent Louisville lawyer who comes to the aid. I mean, that happens so fast. But he's in a jumpsuit. By the way, the officer that arrested...
Put him in a jumpsuit. Now, we might not have been in a jumpsuit within an hour.
Well, but let me ask you, the officer that was hanging onto the car, he didn't go to the... He went to the hospital. He wasn't the guy that
for his
put
torn
him in-
pants, yeah.
Well, he wasn't the guy that put him in the jumpsuit, though, right?
No.
And you think,
No, his buddies did.
and he got out in about an hour, and as
Yeah.
Rich says, you and I, the three of us, would still be in the station.
Did they even have to send that jumpsuit to the laundry afterwards? I mean, you could have used it for the next guy because he wasn't in it very
Where's
often.
his bond? At that point because they didn't know who he was until he got to the station. Apparently, now they know who he is, and they get him over to the game in a record time. I mean, if you'd have gotten arrested and say, "Oh, I have a tea time at 10. Can I get out of here?" What? Hello, what?
Well, because I'd have called you two guys and we'd have lawyered up and we'd have
we
made
got
it
you
work.
out probably quicker.
Well, here's a problem I have. All the ESPN honks and the Golf Channel honks, of which you used to be, and luckily you aren't anymore. But they started in Scheffler great guy mode.
Yeah.
Wonderful father, wonderful human being. He's
We all
the
make
last
mistakes.
guy on the tour we would ever think this would happen to because he's this wonderful human being.
They're probably right.
They don't know. Bob,
They're probably right.
they don't know Scottie Scheffler.
I don't either.
They don't know him.
Yeah.
Did anybody think Tiger Woods was, going out prowling around, donut houses for waitresses?
Tiger had a
or
rep.
would celebrate Thanksgiving by, his wife going after him with a 3-wood? I mean, did anybody know this about Tiger Woods?
Yes.
Plus the fact that when he gets behind the wheel of a car, apparently he's a crazy man who wants to speed everywhere. We don't know these people. We don't know these great athletes. And for the ESPN guys, I remember they said, the first time I saw this on the air, the first thing I thought of was, oh my God, the poor PGA, they're going to have to cancel the tournament. They just lost their top #1 player in the world. But no, it goes on. And they said Scheffler was this shows what kind of man he is going out to play golf. I beg to differ. I mean, and he goes out and shoots a 66.
Which is
Which is pretty amazing.
Well, but that doesn't show what a great man he is.
No.
It shows what a great golfer he is.
Yes.
And what a robot and what a machine. These guys have no idea what's going on in the fairway. I beg to differ. I think he would have showed a great man he was by not playing. And a man just died, okay? A man just died in this accident. And I thought, and apparently Zalatoris said afterward that a lot of players discussed not playing,
Right.
thought about not playing.
Right. Yeah. A number of players did. Yeah.
But they call Scottie Scheffler a great human being by going out and playing golf. Okay?
I mean,
Come on.
there's no Nobel Prize
I mean,
a Peace Prize coming for Scottie this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe next year.
Well, thank you.
Maybe after Kyrie wins his.
Thank you.
That Scottie Scheffler will get his. Anything else? Anything else we
Well,
want to
how
bring
about
up?
your boy Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Oh boy.
How about
No,
that?
not that. Okay. You know what? I'll
Throw him on the
defend.
bus.
No, I'm going to defend Harrison Butker.
No.
Yes.
No.
For the same reason, I'm going to defend. Harrison Butker.
Free speech.
Free
I'll
speech.
defend free speech.
Free speech.
So he gives.
And if 50,000 people want to come out and boo him next week, they got free speech rights too. Go get them.
Well-
but should the Chiefs cut him?
but
No.
no,
Should
I
the
don't
Chiefs?
say
Well,
that,
but that's what the
People are
league
saying,
wants. That's
yeah.
what people are saying.
they shouldn't.
Cut him. Get him out of there.
Well, they're not going to cut him. He's an all-in
He's good.
kicker, right?
Yeah. But they would cut him if he was marginal.
But let's go back to the speech. He gives a speech at Benedictine College.
It was a dumb.
Well, it was
what he said-
anti-Semitic, anti-gay, anti-trans,
And that's how he feels.
He
Anti-wives.
mocked
Yeah.
the Pride Month, and the worst thing he said, of course, that everybody went after was he said that women should be most proud for raising children and being homemakers.
Yeah.
Well, every woman in America
Sure.
went crazy on that. That's not the worst thing he said. But you know what's interesting? It's interesting that his own mother, Butker's own mother,
Yeah.
is a physicist who specializes, I wrote this down, in brachytherapy and gamma knife medical physics care. That's his own mother. And he's going out saying, well, mothers should be most proud of being homemakers. And John Oliver went on, of course, he's talked about his mom. He said, well, his mother shouldn't be proud of that. She'd be most proud of birthing and raising a ham sandwich of a human being, which I thought was so great.
That's a
Good line,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
line. And he should have the right to deliver that line.
Of course,
Whatever.
but that's still
Whatever.
not going to prevent us from throwing him
under the bus. I'll hang on to one leg.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I should, but I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but Harrison Butker is a butthole to me. I mean, come on.
You just did. Anything else? We'll clear the table. We're going to talk more about Kyrie next week probably because we're going to be into the finals. Dallas, Boston. All right, quick prediction. Dallas, Boston.
Wow.
No big analysis, just
I think overall Boston has the more talent.
I hate Celtics, so I'm picking Kyrie and my man Luka.
all right.
Well,
On the
I'm
fourth
pulling for
floor,
Dallas
on the
too. I'm just
second
saying
floor.
Boston has overall
It's not
has
who
more
you pull
talent.
for. So you didn't ask that.
He asked who I thought was going to win.
Yeah, Boston.
I think Boston, but I'm pulling for Dallas.
Yeah,
I think Boston's going to win, and I'm pulling for. I mean, I think Dallas
You
is
think
going to win.
Dallas is
Yeah, I
gonna
still
win.
think they're going to win.
All right. And Mark Cuban's going to say, I still own this team. That's probably what's going to come out of this, even though we sold it.
Kyrie going back to Boston is going to be a show in
It'll be
itself.
good stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be good stuff. And we'll be talking about it and likely to throw some folks under the bus. We're not throwing Hudson's under the bus. We thank them for their sponsorship. For Curry and Rich, I'm Bob Stevens. Thanks so much for joining us.
Under the Bus is a production of the Loco Media Network and is filmed on the Hilton Head Island campus of the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. The executive producer is Justin Jarrett, with assistance from Trey Ramsey, Mahogany Hickman, and Adam Carroll.